But we've taken it upon ourselves to say, oh, no, 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 no. You can't be like that and go to church. That's just not right. I'll never forget when I had pizza with my teen group back in Sheridan. I would do this once every other month or so. I'd bring about 6 or 7 large pizzas to the high school during lunch and invite our youth group and have them invite all their friends. And I mean, who doesn't want free pizza at lunchtime? Sure beats school lunch. Of course, you know, a box of Cracker Jacks often beats school lunch. And they'd have friends come, and I asked him the next day, I said, hey, who was that one kid? You know, the tall kid had the longer hair and it was kind of dressed all in black and stuff. He and I seemed to hit it off pretty well. What was his name? Oh, that's Josh. Okay, well, have you ever invited Josh to youth group? Oh, no, you wouldn't want Josh in church. He's not church people. Well, duh. Isn't that the whole idea? Is to invite people to come to church so they can become church people? I don't expect people to be perfect when they walk through the doors. I don't even expect people like me who've been going to church their whole life to walk through the doors and be perfect. I just want them to be open to what God has got for them. And so Jesus is telling this story not to the sinners and those notorious tax collectors, those bad people. He's telling it to the people who should have it figured out. See, he taught the followers through these stories. The people who were supposed to have it figured out didn't really have it all figured out. They needed to be re-educated. They needed to know this important information. Because you know what? I think it was 97% of all the people were uneducated in that time. They didn't go to school. All the kids said, yeah. Until I say, they went to work out in the fields. They went to work as slaves. They went to work as servants and did all the dirty work. School sound so bad anymore? So he would explain these, he would tell these stories at a lower educational level maybe than what some of the high school graduates and college graduates of the day would do. They didn't have high school and college, but you understand what I'm saying. These people who weren't educated need to hear these stories. And sometimes the educated, like the Pharisees, needed to hear these stories. And so he'd tell these stories. And later on, it never failed. His disciples would be sitting around a campfire that night going, Jesus, we don't get it. What's the story mean? And so he'd often explain the deeper meanings of the stories to his disciples later. Sometimes he didn't even wait till later. He just looked at Peter and said, okay, let me tell you what this means. Because you obviously don't get it yet. But these stories were important. Picks up in the next verse and he says, if a man had 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? 100 sheep, that's a lot of sheep. Anybody ever work with sheep? Dumb animals. Absolutely stupid as posts. Unless there's a predator around, and then all of a sudden they are quick. But man, they're dumb. They smell bad too. I mean, I've been in locker rooms after football games that don't smell as bad as most sheep that I've been around. And these sheep, he's got 100 of them, so he's a fairly rich man because that's a lot of sheep. Even in today's world, that's a lot of sheep to take care of. But he loses one. What will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go search for the one that is lost until he finds it? So he's willing to leave the 99 that were there to go look for the one that was lost. You see, the reason for it, this is his wealth. He didn't have money, he had sheep. And when it came time to buy food in the winter and stuff like that, well, he's got wool that he can trade for food. He's got sheep that he can slaughter and eat, or sell for slaughter, and somebody else can eat and give him something in return that he needs. So even the loss of one sheep could mean the difference between eating and going hungry for a time during the winter. So for me, this picture of a missing sheep, this idea that one sheep out of 100, only 1% of his wealth was gone, it was one that everybody could relate to. It's important. One sheep can feed a family for a week or so back in those days. One sheep could provide wool year after year after year for clothing. It's really cool about wool. You can wear wool and it gets wet and it'll still keep you warm. There's no other fabric on the world that'll do that. Did you know that? I got a pair of wool socks my mom gave me for Christmas, and I was thinking when I got them like 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, oh, thanks, Mom, socks. Woohoo. Love you too. Then I wore them, and I got wet at a football game. Never rains around here, so it couldn't have been here. And I put them on, and I knew it was going to be wet, and I was like, well, they say that these will keep me warm no matter what. My feet were completely soaked, but by the end of the night, my feet were completely warm. I don't know how wool works. I just know that it does. And so it's very important for him to keep all 100 of these sheep, because he's going to breed out of them for next year. He's going to eat some of them for this winter. He's going to use the wool to keep himself and his family warm. So everybody could relate to this picture of this one missing sheep. This story was very important to people. It was very understandable. He goes on. He says, when he found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulder, and when he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over the one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over the 99 others that are righteous and haven't strayed away. Well, that doesn't seem right. If I'm staying with God the whole time, wouldn't he rejoice over me? Well, he did rejoice over you when you accepted Jesus Christ, when you turned back to God. And now, he loves you just the same. And we should be rejoicing along with those people who have accepted Jesus Christ into their hearts. Party time. I don't know about you, but I love a good party. There's not much better for me than getting together with some friends and having some great food. My third favorite holiday of the year, Super Bowl Sunday. Call it what you will, it's a holiday. Super Bowl Sunday, you get together, you have hot wings, you have pizza, you have nachos. Ooh, ribs. There you go. See, now I've got you going. You guys are thinking, oh, food, great, let's have a party. And what goes on? You have the great commercials. Hopefully you have a good football game. And you have fellowship with your friends. It's party time. What a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Well, this guy, he found his sheep. He's coming home. So, hey, let's have a party. Same way with Jesus. When we find one of the lost and he turns back to God and repents and they accept Jesus Christ, we should be having a party. Now, I don't know about getting together and having all sorts of food, although, I'm good with that. But we could get together and have a party, and celebrate when somebody comes to Jesus. Imagine the relief that the shepherd had when he found his valuable possession. Imagine that sense of, I'm looking over here, I'm in the nooks and the crannies, in the hills and in the plains, I'm in the woods, I'm just afraid that something has eaten my sheep, and I won't be able to replace it. And then all of a sudden, out in the distance, you hear, meh. I think that was a sheep. You start walking that direction, and it gets louder, and it gets louder, and it gets louder, and finally you find that sheep, and it's lost. It's searching desperately for the rest of the flock and trying to get back to where it's supposed to be, where it belongs, where it's created to belong. Imagine what the shepherd feels when he finds one of us who has walked away, who's gone stray. The great shepherd, Jesus Christ, has to feel that same kind of relief, that same kind of joy of finding that lost possession. The 99 who weren't lost are still just as important to God. They don't lose their value because they didn't walk away and come back. No, they just had it figured out. And the 99 should be excited and celebrating with the Master when one is found and brought back from the lost. God is good. And he's even so much better and so much sweeter when he is in an excitable mood.